Want to build a PC but feel lost in a jungle of confusing terms? Don't worry. Today, I'm going to show you how to pick PC parts so simple that even a 7-year-old could get it. By the end, you'll know what each part does, how much to spend, and how to make everything work together perfectly. Think of it like building a Lego set. You just need the right pieces in the right place. Ready? Let's jump in and make building your PC easy, fast, and actually fun. So why build your own PC? Simple. You usually want it for one of 3 things. First, gaming. You want your games to run smooth, no lag, and no stutter. Second, editing or creative work. Videos, photos, music. Your PC needs to handle all that without crying for mercy. And third, just basic stuff. Homework, YouTube, browsing, scrolling around. Sure, you could buy a pre-built PC. It's easy, but it often costs more and gives you less. Building your own? You get exactly what you need, save some cash, and end up with a system that works perfectly for you. So now that we know why you want a PC, let's talk about the money side of things. Because knowing how to split your budget is where most beginners get stuck. Don't worry, we'll make it super easy. You need to split your budget so each part gets its fair share. Think of it like slicing a pizza. If you eat the whole thing yourself, there's nothing left for anyone else. Let's say you have $1,000 to spend. You've got 8 main pieces that make a PC actually work. The processor, the graphics card, the motherboard, RAM, storage, power supply, case, and fans. Each one needs a slice of the budget. Here's a simple way to split it. The processor gets about 20 to 25%, so around $200 to $250. The graphics card usually takes the biggest slice, 30 to 40%, around $300 to $400. The motherboard is next, about 10 to 15%. RAM is around 10%. Storage maybe 5 to 10%. The power supply around 5 to 10% as well. And the case and fans together take the rest. Of course, these aren't strict rules. If you really want a top-tier graphics card, you can save a little on the CPU or case. Or if you're going budget, you can swap parts around. The point is to keep things balanced. Once you've got your budget slices ready, we can move on to understanding what each part actually does, because knowing that makes picking them way less scary. Alright, now that we know how to slice our budget, it's time to meet the team. The parts that make your PC tick. First up, the CPU. This is the brain of your computer. It does all the thinking, all the math, and all the heavy calculations. Without it, nothing happens. Next, the graphics card, or GPU. This is the artist. It takes all the calculations from the CPU and turns them into pretty images, games, videos, everything you see on the screen. Then there's the motherboard. Think of it as the stage where everything happens. It holds all the parts together and lets them talk to each other. Without it, the CPU and GPU can't even high-five. RAM is like your short-term memory. It helps your PC remember what you're doing right now, whether it's running a game or switching between apps. More RAM means your computer can multitask without losing its mind. The power supply, or PSU, is the heart. It pumps electricity to every part so they can function. A weak heart and the whole system collapses. Storage is your backpack. This is where all your files, games, and programs live. Bigger and faster storage means you can carry more stuff and get to it quicker. The case is the house that keeps all these parts safe. And finally, the fans. They're the air conditioning, keeping everything cool so your PC doesn't melt down during a marathon gaming session. Now that we know who does what, picking the right parts will feel way less like rocket science and more like putting together your favorite Lego set. Alright, now let's actually pick the components. We'll go one by one so it's easy to follow. Alright, let's start with the CPU, the brain of your PC. This is the part that handles all the calculations and instructions your computer needs to run, from opening a simple program to processing complex tasks. On AMD's side, CPU are called Ryzen, and they come in tiers like 3, 5, 7, and 9. The numbers show the level, with 3 being entry-level, 5 mid-range, 7 high-end, and 9 top-tier. Then there are generations like 5000, 7000, or 9000, which show the release series. Letters at the end tell you features. X means it can be overclocked, G means it has integrated graphics, and no letter is the standard version. Intel CPUs are similar, going i3, i5, i7, and i9, with generations like 13th or 14th, and letters like K, F, KF, or T, showing overclocking or integrated graphics. You'll also see cores and threads in the specs. Cores are like workers inside the CPU, and threads show how many tasks each worker can handle at the same time. Now, how do you pick a CPU for your budget? If you're building a low-budget PC, you'll usually aim for an entry-level tier, like Ryzen 3 or Intel i3, from the latest generation your budget allows. For a mid-range build, a Ryzen 5 or i5 from a recent generation is typical, offering more cores and threads without overspending. And for a high-end PC, a Ryzen 7, Ryzen 9, i7, or i9 from a newer generation gives you the highest core counts, threads, and features, but it will take a bigger chunk of your budget. Basically, pick the tier that fits your money, then match the generation and features to make sure it's current enough to handle your tasks. Next, let's talk about the GPU, or graphics card, which handles all the visuals in your PC. While the CPU does the calculations, the GPU turns that into the images, videos, and animations you see on your screen. There are three main companies: NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, and they all work kind of the same. NVIDIA has the 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 series, which show the generation. For example, an RTX 4070 is roughly similar in power to an RTX 3080. AMD has the RX series, like RX 6600, 7600, or 7900, which also follow generations, and Intel makes the ARC series, like A380 or a 770. Some GPUs have extra letters, like TI on NVIDIA or XT on AMD, showing a slightly stronger version of the base card. To figure out which GPU is stronger, the easiest way is just to check gaming benchmarks or performance tests. That's really all you need. You don't have to dive into VRAM numbers, cores, or anything complicated. Once you understand the series and generations, you already know how powerful it is, and you can move on to picking a motherboard. The next step is choosing your motherboard. This part can seem a bit more complex, but don't stress, it's really not that hard. First, you'll want to look at motherboards that fit your overall budget. Then, in your store filters, make sure to select the socket type that matches your CPU. Just to clarify, the socket is the part in the center of the motherboard where the CPU sits. AMD CPU have tiny pins on the bottom, while Intel CPU don't. Instead, Intel's pins are built into the motherboard itself. So when you're picking a motherboard, check the socket your CPU needs. For AMD, it's usually AM4 or AM5. For Intel, it starts with LGA followed by numbers like LGA1200 or LGA1700. There are a lot of them, but you don't need to memorize all of them. The CPU specs list the socket type, so just match that. Once you filter by budget and socket, you'll probably have a few options left. From there, you pick the motherboard based on the chipset. The chipset decides what your motherboard can do: overclocking, RAM limits, ports, GPU compatibility, and other features. For AMD, the main chipsets are A, B, and X. A series is budget-friendly and basic, B series is mid-range with decent features, and X series is premium with everything unlocked. For Intel, it's H for budget, B for mid-range, and Z for premium, similar to AMD's X series. Just make sure your motherboard supports the RAM you want and any upgrades you plan. Overall, picking a motherboard is simple once you know the socket and chipset. Budget-wise, set aside about 10% of your total budget for RAM, and that'll give you an idea of how much you can get. These days, 16 gigabytes is considered the minimum for gaming or most tasks, but of course it depends on your budget. A quick tip for RAM: always go for 2 sticks instead of 1. So if you're getting 16 gigabytes, buy 2 8GB sticks rather than a single 16 gigabyte stick. This activates dual channel mode, which improves performance. Another thing to keep in mind is RAM frequency. The higher, the better. Go for the fastest speed your budget and motherboard allow. You might also notice something called timing, usually listed as CL, followed by numbers. Lower numbers are slightly better, but don't worry too much about this. If it looks good and fits your system, it's fine. That's really all you need to know about RAM. Now, let's talk about the PSU, or Power Supply Unit, which is basically the heart of your PC. It takes electricity from the wall and sends it to all your components. First, you need to figure out how much power your system needs in watts. The easiest way is to use a PSU calculator online. Just enter your CPU, GPU, RAM, and any other components, and it'll tell you the recommended wattage. Once you have that number, add an extra 100 or 200 watts for safety. Also pay attention to the efficiency rating, usually 80 plus bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. Stick to trusted brands for safety because a bad PSU can damage your whole system. That's all you really need to know to pick the right PSU for your build. Now, let's talk about storage, which is where all your files, games, and programs live. The two main types are SSDs and HDDs. SSDs are much faster, while HDDs are slower but usually cheaper for bigger sizes. If your budget allows, always go for an SSD first. There are two common SSD types, NVMe and SATA. NVMe drives are faster and plug directly into your motherboard, while SATA drives are slightly slower but still much better than old HDDs. In terms of size, pick the biggest you can afford. For most builds, 500 gigabytes to 1 terabyte is a good starting point, but if you store a lot of games or files, aim higher. The key thing is speed and capacity. Faster drives mean less weighting, and bigger drives mean more space for everything you need. Next up is the CPU cooler, which keeps your processor from getting too hot. There are two main types, air coolers and liquid coolers. Air coolers are cheaper and usually a bit louder, while liquid coolers are more expensive but can be quieter and slightly more efficient. Choosing a cooler mainly depends on your CPU's TDP, or thermal design power, which shows how much heat it produces. You just need a cooler rated for a TDP higher than your CPU's. That's it. No need to overthink it. Make sure it fits inside your case and won't block other components. For most builds, a decent air cooler is enough, and only high-end builds really need liquid cooling. With the right cooler, your CPU will stay safe and perform smoothly. Now, let's talk about the PC case, which is basically the box that holds all your components. When picking a case, your budget is the first thing to consider, usually about 3 to 5% of your total build. Then check if your components actually fit inside. Motherboards come in sizes like Mini ITX, Micro ATX, and ATX, so make sure the case supports your motherboard. Also, check the GPU length and CPU cooler height, so everything fits comfortably. Some cases have the PSU mounted at the bottom, which is more efficient, while older or cheaper cases put it at the top. Beyond that, just pick a case you like the look of, with enough airflow and room for any future upgrades. That's really all you need to know. Hopefully, now you understand how to choose all the PC parts for your build and won't feel lost doing it. The most important mindset is to treat your PC like a living organism. Every part plays a vital role, just like organs in a body. Once you understand that, everything starts to make sense really quickly. I tried to explain everything in this video so that you could pick your parts on your own without having to ask someone else for help. I hope it helped you out.